Reality is a mirror, but it doesn't reflect your words. It reflects your state. You can smile while your stomach is in knots. You can affirm abundance while your body is bracing for scarcity. The field listens to the broadcast underneath the mask, not the mask itself. Because here's the paradox. People spend years trying to bend external events, to push reality into shape, yet the quantum field doesn't respond to effort. It responds to coherence. It responds to the signal of who you are being. And that identity, not your thoughts, not your affirmations, but the embodied signature you carry in your nervous system, is what collapses reality into form. Think about this. A person trying to attract love while still embodying the identity of rejection. A student trying to attract success while still embodying the identity of struggle. Or someone refreshing their bank app again and again, waiting for proof of abundance, but inside embodying scarcity. The mismatch is the broadcast, and reality simply mirrors it back, not as punishment, as physics. Because every outcome you're chasing is already alive as a frequency. It's not missing, it's simply inaccessible until your system organizes itself into that same vibrational identity. The science is simple yet profound. The heart and brain generate electromagnetic fields measurable beyond your body. They pulse with coherence when aligned, and with noise when fragmented. Your nervous system translates thought into chemistry, chemistry into vibration, and vibration into signal. Which means manifestation is not about words, it's about physiology. You don't manifest from the sentence you speak. You manifest from the identity you inhabit. The quantum field is like a stage waiting for a role to be embodied. You don't get the script until you play the character. Imagine this in your daily life. You're sitting in traffic, gripping the wheel, angry at the delay, your body broadcasting impatience, your identity still entangled with lack of time, or you're scrolling social media, comparing your life to strangers, your nervous system embodying inadequacy, no matter how many affirmations you recite, or lying awake at night, rehearsing arguments in your head, the identity of conflict becoming more real than the peace you say you want. These micro moments are not small. They are your practice. They are the frequencies you are rehearsing into reality. This is why trying harder never works, because trying harder from the wrong identity is just sending a louder version of the wrong signal. The shift is never outside in, it is always inside out. Not by effort, by embodiment, not by fixing, by becoming. The moment you regulate your nervous system into coherence, you create resonance with the timeline where what you desire is already true. That's why you've heard it said, act as if, but deeper than action is being as if. Identity is the code, circumstances follow, and here's the beauty, neuroplasticity is on your side. The brain rewires itself not by occasional effort, but by consistent states. When you embody calm, gratitude, joy, not as a mask but as a lived experience in your cells, the neural pathways reinforce that identity. The subconscious reprograms, and the field responds. The law is simple. You don't get what you want, you get who you are. If this is landing for you, take a moment and drop one word in the comments, the identity you are choosing to embody this week. Not what you want, but who you choose to be. Because language matters when it encodes identity. I am is the most powerful declaration you can make. Now here's where it gets subtle and even more fascinating. Identity is not something you build in the future. It's something you remember in the present. Because every frequency already exists in the quantum field. When you align with it now, you collapse it into form now. You stop waiting for circumstances to prove it, and instead, let your nervous system prove it to reality. This is how timelines collapse. This is how destiny bends, not by chasing, by becoming. And I'll take you even deeper. Identity is not only psychological, it is vibrational biology. Your cells literally tune themselves to the chemistry you repeat. Stress hormones tune you to lack. Coherence chemicals like oxytocin and serotonin tune you to abundance. Every breath is a broadcast. Every state is a rehearsal, which means manifestation is not mystical. It is measurable. You can feel when your identity shifts because your physiology shifts. You can stop fighting circumstances when you realize circumstances are echoes. They lag behind, identity leads, circumstances chase. And when you understand that, you stop waiting for evidence to feel safe, to feel worthy, to feel abundant. You begin feeling it first, not faking, but regulating your system until coherence is real, until gratitude is not a thought, but a vibration, until love is not a desire, but a signature. Then, and only then, the field reorganizes around you. Because manifestation is never about convincing reality. It's about convincing your nervous system. When you embody safety, the field reflects safety. When you embody worthiness, the field reflects opportunity. When you embody abundance, the field reflects flow. You don't wait for the play to change scenes. You step into the role, and the scene follows you. So let's slow this down. Why is identity the real driver, not circumstances? Because circumstances are effects, not causes. They are snapshots of past frequencies your body has already embodied. By the time you see them, they're already history. It's like looking at the light from a distant star, beautiful, but delayed. Most people live reacting to those echoes, trying to fight or fix what has already been broadcast. But physics tells us the observer collapses possibility into reality, which means who you are while observing matters far more than what you observe. Take a common example, someone waiting for a text back. They check the phone every 5 minutes, heart racing, body braced. They think they're waiting for a message, but what they're really transmitting is abandonment. Their nervous system is telling the field, I am the one left waiting. And so reality arranges itself to match that identity. The longer they wait, the more proof they receive. Not because the universe is cruel, but because coherence is law. Another scenario. The person forcing themselves to smile in the mirror, chanting, I'm successful, while their chest is tight with fear. The affirmation doesn't land because their body is still broadcasting stress chemistry. Dopamine isn't flowing, oxytocin isn't rising, heart and brain aren't coherent, which means the words float on the surface while the subconscious, the true transmitter, keeps looping the identity of struggle. Or consider someone at the gym looking around at others, comparing physiques. They want health but embody shame. They lift weights, but their cells are pulsing cortisol. And so health feels far away, not because they're doing the wrong thing, but because they're doing it from the wrong identity. The signal is always stronger than the strategy. And here's the turning point. Identity is not fixed. It's plastic, neuroplastic. The same way a muscle reshapes with repeated tension, the brain reshapes with repeated states. Every time you breathe deeply instead of bracing, you teach your system safety. Every time you embody gratitude instead of lack, you carve new synaptic grooves. Every time you pause instead of spiraling, you begin to become someone else. Not by force, but by frequency. So manifestation is not about controlling outcomes, it's about regulating identity. You stop chasing circumstances, and you start choosing states. From there, the field takes care of the arrangement, and life begins to mirror back a version of you that feels inevitable, not accidental. Identity is the true leverage point, because it's both biology and quantum signal. When neuroscientists measure brain activity, they see that most people are firing the same neural patterns over and over, which means they're living from the same identity on autopilot. If you've rehearsed worry for 10 years, worry isn't just a passing thought anymore. It's a trait. It's who your brain believes you are. The subconscious stores it as your baseline. And because the subconscious drives over 90% of behavior and physiology, that baseline becomes your broadcast. You might consciously say, I want abundance, but unconsciously, you're still rehearsing scarcity in your breath, in your chemistry, in your micro movements. And the field is listening to that signal, not your surface words. Think of someone sitting at dinner pretending to be relaxed, but their leg won't stop bouncing under the table. They're speaking confidence, but broadcasting anxiety. Or imagine a person smiling at a job interview saying the right things, while their nervous system is still vibrating with insecurity from the last rejection. The panel doesn't just hear the words, they feel the frequency. This is not mystical. Mirror neurons and subtle biofields pick up on coherence or incoherence instantly, which means identity is never hidden. It's always communicated. And here's the trap. The more you try to escape your current identity by forcing outcomes, the more you reinforce it. Effort from lack proves lack. Chasing success from inadequacy proves inadequacy, which is why manifestation feels exhausting when misunderstood. You're trying to sculpt reality with your hands, while the blueprint remains unchanged. But shift the blueprint, shift the identity, and reality rearranges on its own. It's exactly like theater. If you keep playing the same role night after night, the scenery, the dialogue, the story arc, they all adapt to that role. But if you step into a new character, suddenly the entire play reorganizes. New costumes, new props, new plot lines. Reality is a stage, and identity is your casting choice. The universe does not deliver the scene until you step fully into the role. Now, the nervous system is the access point. Identity isn't changed by mere willpower. It's changed by state. That's why trying to think positive doesn't last when your body is still bracing. But the moment you breathe differently, regulate your heart rhythm, create coherence between brain and body, your signal changes, and with it, your identity begins to shift. This is not faking until you make it. This is embodying until you become it. So the most important question is not, how do I get what I want? It's, who am I rehearsing right now? Because every sigh, every thought spiral, every choice of posture is rehearsal, and the body keeps the score. The quantum field reads the score, and circumstances follow the score. So how do we actually rehearse a new identity without it feeling fake? The key is micro-experiences, not giant leaps. Your nervous system doesn't shift because you shouted, "I am abundant" once. It shifts because in a small moment you breathed safety into your body when you would have normally panicked. That one breath is not small. It's identity training. Over and over, these micro-shifts accumulate until your biology no longer recognizes the old self as familiar. Picture this. You open your email and see an unexpected bill. The old identity contracts, heart racing, stomach tightening. But instead of spiraling, you place your hand on your chest, breathe slower, and anchor gratitude for even being capable of paying. In that moment, you rehearsed abundance instead of lack. Another example, you're about to text someone back with defensiveness, rehearsing rejection again. But you pause, regulate, and reply from calm presence. You rehearsed worthiness instead of fear. Or think of being in a store, tempted to compare yourself to everyone around you. Instead, you stand taller, soften your shoulders, and rehearse confidence. These are not throwaway moments. These are rehearsals of identity. The subconscious learns through repetition and feeling, which means you don't need to convince it with arguments. You need to teach it through lived states. Every time you embody safety, you are saying, "I am the kind of person who trusts life." Every time you embody gratitude, "I am the kind of person who already has enough." Every time you embody joy without a reason, "I am the kind of person who attracts more joy." And the field reorganizes around that broadcast. This is why people who stop chasing often experience sudden breakthroughs. Not because life finally gave in, but because they stopped contradicting themselves. Their nervous system became coherent enough for reality to meet them. It's not about deserving, it's about resonance. The world does not respond to your wish list. It responds to your frequency signature. And here's the subtle trap to avoid: waiting to feel coherent only after the manifestation shows up. That keeps you locked in the old loop. Circumstances are echoes. They can't lead. Identity always leads. So you cannot outsource your state to what's happening outside. You must embody it first. That's the discipline. That's the liberation. Not by waiting, by rehearsing, not by demanding, by transmitting, not by grasping, by becoming. If this is resonating, pause for a moment and comment below one word that describes the identity state you are choosing to embody today. Just one word, because clarity of identity collapses confusion of circumstance. And when you practice it, something profound happens. You realize manifestation isn't something you do, it's something you are. Your nervous system, your chemistry, your breath, all of it becomes the script. And the play of life can only follow. The shift becomes undeniable once you realize your nervous system is the broadcasting tower of your reality. Think about this. Every single second, your body sends out more signals than your conscious mind could ever keep track of. Heart rhythms, hormonal cascades, micro-expressions, even the tone of your breath, all of it radiates out, creating coherence or incoherence. Which means the universe doesn't respond to the paragraph you wrote in your journal. It responds to the signature your body is pulsing in this very moment. And this is why embodiment is the missing piece so many overlook. You can visualize for hours, but if you step outside and immediately brace against life, your signal reverts. You can script affirmations until your hand cramps, but if your body still collapses in shame when you're around others, the transmission is contradiction. True manifestation isn't mental rehearsal alone, it's vibrational embodiment. The quantum field reads what you become, not what you recite. Let me ground this with a scenario. Imagine standing in front of the mirror, shoulders slouched, repeating, "I am confident." The words are hollow if your biology is rehearsing collapse. But if you adjust your posture, breathe into your chest, lift your gaze and feel into that identity, suddenly the nervous system accepts the rehearsal as reality. Or think of sitting at your desk repeating, "I am abundant," but tensing as you check your account. That tension is the real broadcast. Shift the body first, regulate the breath, embody gratitude before opening the app. Now the subconscious has a new code to follow. Identity is biological memory. Your body remembers who you've been, even when your mind is trying to escape it. Which means the work is not to shout louder affirmations. It's to recondition the body into coherence until the old identity no longer feels safe. Because here's the paradox. The subconscious clings to the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. That's why change feels so hard, but coherence feels better than fear. Resonance feels better than struggle. Once your nervous system experiences the difference, it doesn't want to go back. And that's when manifestation accelerates. Not because you're pushing harder, but because your baseline identity has shifted. Life reflects it back without resistance. Opportunities appear not as accidents, but as extensions of who you've become. Relationships evolve not by control, but by resonance. Money flows not by obsession, but by embodiment. Circumstances have no choice but to match the new frequency. This is why identity is the seed, and circumstances are the harvest. You never stand in the field yelling at crops to grow. You embody the gardener who has already planted. The harvest follows, always. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. Identity is not just a psychological construct, it's a quantum address. Think of every possible version of you already existing as potential in the field. There is a version of you who is abundant, who is deeply loved, who is peaceful, who is free. Those versions are not fantasies, they are frequencies. And when you embody one, you lock onto its address. The field doesn't deliver outcomes randomly. It routes experiences to the identity that matches. This is why timelines collapse the moment you stop negotiating with your old self. As long as you half-step between identities, 1 foot in lack, 1 foot in abundance, the signal is scrambled. But the instant you decide and embody, reality organizes. Not over years, often instantly, because coherence accelerates collapse. The field doesn't need time to deliver what is already vibrationally true. It only needs your nervous system to stop contradicting it. Take an example from daily life. Imagine a person who has always identified as the one who gets overlooked. They walk into a room, and their posture, their micro-expressions, their voice tone all transmit invisibility. And so people literally overlook them, not out of cruelty, but coherence. But the day that person decides to embody presence, shoulders open, breath steady, eyes meeting eyes, suddenly conversations magnetize toward them. Nothing mystical. Identity broadcast changed, and reality matched. Another example, someone has always identified as struggling with money. No matter how many strategies they try, the nervous system is still tuned to scarcity. But one day they shift, embodying worthiness, not faking, but truly feeling it in their chest, relaxing into safety. Suddenly opportunities appear, calls get returned. The how takes care of itself. Why? Because the identity of worthiness carries a different quantum address than the identity of struggle. And here's the deeper layer. The heart-brain system is the interface. When you generate coherence, slowing the breath, amplifying gratitude, creating alignment between heart rhythm and brain waves, you're not just calming down. You are tuning your broadcast to a frequency measurable in the field. HeartMath Institute has shown this coherence radiates out several feet. But physics says it goes even further, beyond the body, entangled with the field itself, which means your identity shift is not private, it's quantum. So manifestation stops being about when will it happen and becomes which identity am I tuning to now? The moment you choose and rehearse the new identity, you are already living in that reality's coordinates. Circumstances simply rush to catch up, not by forcing, by aligning, not by waiting, by tuning, not by hoping, by becoming. The greatest illusion is believing that your circumstances define who you are. In truth, who you are defines your circumstances. Every moment you reinforce your identity, you are writing the script life must perform. That's why the same person can move cities, change jobs, enter new relationships, yet the same patterns repeat. Because they carried the old identity into a new stage, and the scenery rearranged itself accordingly. You don't escape identity by running from it. You transform it by rehearsing a new state until the old one dissolves. Think about the person who ends a relationship, swears they'll never repeat it, but weeks later they're with someone almost identical. Or the person who changes careers hoping for freedom, only to feel trapped again. Or the person who receives a sudden windfall of money, but loses it just as quickly. None of these are failures of circumstance. They are successes of identity. The field is faithfully mirroring the signal they embodied. Until identity changes, outcomes recycle. But the moment identity shifts, everything breaks open. Suddenly, the opportunities that once felt impossible appear natural. The love that once felt unreachable feels inevitable. The peace that once seemed like a dream feels like home. Not because life has finally decided to reward you, but because you finally stopped transmitting contradiction. Identity is the bridge between science and spirit. On the scientific level, it's neuroplasticity, hormones, and electromagnetic fields. On the spiritual level, it's the soul remembering itself through embodiment. When both layers meet, you feel it. The sensation of alignment, the deep cellular knowing, this is me now. And once you embody that, you stop needing proof. Because the identity itself is the proof. Imagine walking into a room no longer asking, will they accept me, but embodying, I am acceptance. Imagine looking at your bank account not from panic, but from, I am already safe. Imagine waking up in the morning not from dread, but from, I am purpose. These shifts aren't forced, they're rehearsed. And with each rehearsal, the quantum field has no choice but to arrange accordingly. Not by chasing, by inhabiting, not by demanding. By resonating, not by waiting, by becoming. This is where it all converges. All the science, all the practice, all the paradoxes, they lead to this single realization. Manifestation has never been about fixing your circumstances. It has always been about embodying your identity. The field doesn't wait for you to prove yourself through external effort. It waits for coherence. It waits for the signal that says, without hesitation, this is who I am. Think about how many years people lose trying to manipulate the outside world. They work harder, force more strategies, chase endless techniques, and still feel like they're running in circles. Why? Because the nervous system is still rehearsing the same old identity. The student who believes they are inadequate can get the best grades and still feel small. The person who believes they are unworthy can meet someone loving and still sabotage the relationship. The worker who believes money is scarce can double their salary and still feel broke. Circumstances don't free you from identity. Identity imprints itself onto every circumstance until you decide otherwise. And here's the liberation. You don't have to wait for reality to change before you do. In fact, you can't. Circumstances are echoes, projections of the frequency you've already been embodying. By the time you see them, they're old news. They are like starlight traveling across galaxies. Beautiful, yes, but delayed. Which means if you're waiting for external proof, you're always behind. But when you shift identity now, you leap ahead, you collapse timelines, you cut through the delay, and broadcast a new signal immediately. That's how the field reorganizes around you. So what does this actually look like in real life? Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. Most people reach for their phone, scroll through notifications, and instantly rehearse the old self, the stressed one, the comparing one, the waiting one. But what if instead you paused, you breathed, you chose one identity word: calm, powerful, abundant, free, and then you embodied it before even leaving bed. You felt it in your breath, your posture, your chemistry. You began the day as that version of you, rehearsing it until your body believed it. That single choice repeated daily is enough to rewire your subconscious. Let's take another scene. You're standing in line at the grocery store. The person ahead of you is slow, fumbling, delaying everyone. The old identity of impatience kicks in. Heart races, jaw tightens. But here's your moment of power. Instead of spiraling, you breathe, soften, and embody patience. You become the version of yourself who trusts time. That one micro-rehearsal isn't small. It tells the field, I am someone who lives in flow. And the field must reflect it. Or imagine a more emotional situation. You get a message that triggers you, maybe rejection, maybe criticism. The old identity leaps up. See, I'm not enough. But you pause. You feel the heat rise, but instead of collapsing, you ground into coherence. You breathe slower, place a hand on your chest, and remind your body, I am worthy regardless. That's not just emotional regulation. That is quantum transmission. That is embodiment collapsing a different outcome. Over time, these moments stack. They become grooves in your nervous system, pathways in your brain, chemistry in your blood. Identity shifts from being a mental intention to being a biological fact. And once that happens, you no longer wait for proof. You no longer argue with circumstances. You know who you are, and life has no choice but to meet you there. And this is why identity is the bridge between neuroscience and quantum physics. In the lab, scientists call it neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself through repeated states. In quantum terms, it's coherence, the alignment of your broadcast with the frequency of the timeline you desire. On the human level, it's embodiment, the lived experience of becoming that self here and now. Different languages, same truth. So the deepest shift you can make is this: stop asking when will it happen, and start asking who am I being right now? Because the answer to that question writes the script of your life. If you are being the same identity you've always been, expect the same outcomes. If you are rehearsing even a slightly expanded identity, calmer, more grateful, more present, expect reality to mirror that expansion. It has no choice, and here's what you'll discover. Manifestation is not a technique. It's not something you do at 7 a.m. and forget by noon. It's not even about desire. It's about identity. The version of you you've been rehearsing is the version of you the universe must mirror, which means you already are manifesting every second, whether consciously or unconsciously. The question is, are you manifesting as the old identity or the new one? So here's my invitation. Starting today, choose your word. One word that encodes the identity you are ready to embody. Not a circumstance, not a goal, a being. Comment it below, write it, speak it, but most importantly, rehearse it in your body until it becomes your baseline. Because once it does, manifestation stops being effort. It becomes inevitability. Not by striving, by aligning, not by forcing, by resonating, not by waiting, by becoming. And if this resonates, subscribe and join this community of coherence, because together, we're not just talking about manifestation, we're embodying it. Week by week, breath by breath, identity by identity, because the life you seek isn't hiding in circumstances, it's encoded in the self you choose to inhabit now.